Welcome to another episode of Field of Screams podcast. Today we will be ranking all 8 Paranormal Activity movies, the 7 US made Paranormal Activity movies, and the 1 Japanese spin-off movie. So where do they all rank? What's number 1? What's the worst one? We will get into it. Just keep in mind, these are my opinion and these are the movies that I like. So that is how I'm ranking them, by how much I like them. Just keep that in mind. So let's get started. Number 8, coming in very last place, the very worst Paranormal Activity movie, has to be Paranormal Activity Ghost Dimension. Now, I don't think I'm the only one who thinks this is the worst movie of the franchise. I think most rankings agree with this. It is very boring, which is the ultimate sin. It said that it was going to answer all of our questions, this movie. It does not answer really any questions, at least in my opinion. Most of the facts that it tries to tell throughout the movie, you learn in previous movies. It promised to show the ghost and all the demonic activity. What they do show is just this black goo. It looks like the sludge from Venom. Sometimes it looks like poop particles just floating around in the air. It's very, very cheap CGI. Starting with the very first movie where it's so atmospheric. You got this movie who's just trying to show you everything, and it's not scary, and it's just sludge floating around a room. It's awful. I absolutely hate this movie. It killed the storyline with Katie and Toby and Hunter. Katie and Hunter were not even in this movie. This movie is just awful, and that is why it's in last place at number 8. Number 7 is Paranormal Activity: The Next of Kin. Now, this movie is beautifully shot. It has great atmosphere. It has a pretty good twist at the end. The only problem that it has is that it is not a Paranormal Activity movie. It doesn't relate to any of the Paranormal Activity movies at all. They literally just slapped the title on it to get more viewers, and to me it's a disservice to not only the Paranormal Activity franchise, but this movie itself. If they just would have labeled this The Next of Kin, I think a lot of people would have liked this, but I think since they just slapped that title on there, and then Paranormal Activity fans kind of came over and they're like, oh, another one. Oh, maybe this time they'll answer questions after that crappy Ghost Dimension movie. And then it doesn't relate at all. That could turn people off, and that kind of turned me off when I first watched it. So it is like a decent movie, but it's just not a Paranormal Activity movie. When you start getting into the territory of slapping a franchise name on a random story made by the studio, you start getting into the territory of Hellraiser and all of its later sequels that, people often complain about. And to me, I think this franchise deserves better than that. So that's why I put it at number 7. Number 6, and this will be very, very controversial for a lot of people, and I will explain it, and I will have to go into when I rank other movies why I have it here. But my number 6 is Paranormal Activity 2. Now let me just start this off by saying 6 and higher, all of these movies are Paranormal Activity movies that I love. So I do not hate number 2 one bit whatsoever. It has a lot of big moments in it. The moment where Christy's in the kitchen and the cabinets explode open, when I watched that in theater, I about soiled myself. It's a pretty good scare. Christy getting dragged out of the room, carried downstairs. She breaks away, runs back, it grabs her again. She gets dragged down the stairs all the way back to the basement. Awesome moment. It has good characters in it. Allie is a very cool character that I thought they should have used later on in the franchise. I liked how they brought Katie and Mika back, and they kind of established this lore by the very end. One of the huge saving graces of this movie is the very end when they transfer the curse from Christy to Katie, and they kind of explain why everything happened with the first one. That was very cool what they did. They turned it into a prequel, and they established this lore of that the demon Toby's actually looking for, the firstborn son, and they were going to take him. That was all very cool. It was an awesome cliffhanger. It does a very good job in all of that stuff. Now here's some of my problems with number 2. One, I feel like this one can get very slow. And what I mean slow, I don't mean atmospheric slow. I listed the big moments that I thought, were the highlights of the film. But I feel like if you condense the highlights of this film, it's not going to be very long. And I feel mean-spirited saying that, but I mean it. I feel like there's just a lot of endless footage of like them hanging around his family, doing cookouts, hanging out by the pool. We get a lot of night shots of the pool, which don't really amount to much. One of the things that like I take away a lot from it is there's a lot of cutaways in this film. A lot of times when Christy's finally possessed, which by the way, it's like the last half hour of the film, like you spend like 40-50 minutes like getting to know the family, which is cool because they're all good characters, but then the last half hour like sprints to the end. But Christy's possessed, and there's a part to where Allie goes to talk to Hunter because he's crying, and Christy like turns in the room, and she's like, "What are you doing? Stay away from him!" Like yells, and you're like, "Oh man, that's scary." But then like it cuts away to like Allie calling her dad and saying, "Hey, mom's not right. Like you need to come home." And in my head, I'm like, man, they could have done so much more with possessed Christy. They really could, and I wish they would have, because if they would have, that would have like lifted this movie way up towards the top. But they didn't. And even the part to where the dad, they're performing the seance, whatever you want to call it, to try to make her better, and Christy like lunges at him, and then the lights go off. You don't see it. Again, they cut away. And I'm like, why do they keep cutting away every time Christy's doing something cool? Like, let the woman cook. I want to see her do scary things. I think she could. And part of me was wondering if the actress, like, maybe she was, like, really good, but when she did evil scenes, they're like, it looks kind of goofy, so we'll cut away. But the very ending, when the lights go off and they go night vision, they have to go in the basement. I find it very hard to tell what's going on during that scene. It's just like the camera's moving around all crazily. It's night vision. And I'm like, I can't tell what's going on. And when he finally gets Christy down on the ground and starts doing the little thing, literally the camera's like pointed away. So again, we don't really see it. And like the ground starts shaking, like it's one of those machines in Home Depot that like shakes up the paint when you're going to buy paint. I don't know, like there's just like a lot of small things. I'm like, why did they do that? Why, editing wise? There's just a lot of weird decisions editing wise, to where like it kind of just grinds my gears a little bit. And there's a lot of slow burn movies in this franchise, and if I'm going to go to one of the slow burn movies, it's probably not going to be this one. So that's why it kind of knocks it down to number 6. Number 5 is Paranormal Activity 4. Now I'm going to start with the negatives here. The biggest negative that this movie has is that at the end of Paranormal Activity 2, Katie takes Hunter and she walks away, and then you have to wait 2 movies to see, what is the aftermath, and you're all excited for it. And then like this movie comes out, and there's this family that we're following around. There's a girl named Alex and her boyfriend Ben, and she has a little brother named Wyatt. And then we start seeing Katie come into the picture, and you're like, oh man, and Katie has a little boy named Robbie. And you're like, oh, Robbie's definitely Hunter, because that would make sense, because Katie had Hunter at the end of number 2. But then about halfway or 3/4 through the movie, you find out that Wyatt is Hunter. And they're like, yeah, we adopted Wyatt. And it's like, wait, no, how did that happen? Because Katie had Hunter. Like, that was the whole goal of the demon. She wanted the firstborn son. But now somehow Hunter is in this family and he was adopted. How did that happen? And it really doesn't make sense narratively. And it doesn't really break any ground as far as lore goes. And man, the parents in this film, like, they passive-aggressively, monotonely just acknowledge all of the weird, scary things happen on with these kids, and they don't do a thing about it. So those are the very aggravating points of this film. Now, granted, I know the narrative is annoying because it doesn't really make sense when you watch it. And when I said I will answer that later on in the movies, you're gonna wait a little bit longer. But whenever this movie first came out, I was like, man, that really didn't make any sense, that whole plot twist. Like, how did that happen? You have to kind of infer with your mind that somehow Katie lost Hunter after she took him from Katie, and then he went into an adoption agency, and then she's working her way back to steal him again in number 4. So it is very weird. Now, the things that I like about this film, I feel like the kid characters in this movie, they are all very good characters. I liked Alex, I liked Wyatt, I liked Ben. Ben was really funny. I even liked Robbie playing the creepy little kid. The Xbox Connect thing was kind of cool. It's the coolest thing that the Xbox Connect will ever be part of because no one uses it anymore. This movie has cool scenes like the garage scene where Alex gets locked in it and the car's getting revved up. She almost dies. The chandelier falling was a good jump scare. Wyatt getting sucked up in the bathtub was pretty cool. We get to see Demon Katie in action for the first time. And when I say the first time, I mean, like, I know we get those little bits at the end of number 2 and 1. But this one, like, we get to see her, like, running through the hallway, like, breaking through doors. That was awesome. That was some of the stuff I wanted to see in later sequels. So it does have very good moments. Now, here's where it breaks down between 4 and 2, because I've been shuffling these back and forth while I've been watching the rest of the films, and I just literally can't get a grip on it. Number 4, I feel like has just like a settled charm about it, and I feel like the pacing is just a little better, like more creepier things happen, and there's not as much like family buildup as number 2 is, but number 2 is better narratively. I mean, like, it establishes a bunch of lore and it gets it set for all these sequels. So, I mean, like, for me, really, just depending on the day, because there's some days where I'm like, yeah, man, the ending was pretty sick in number 2, and the narrative stuff in number 4 doesn't really make a lot of sense. So maybe it does need to be above number 4. But I kind of made the final decision that if I'm going to go back and watch a film, I'm probably going to watch number 4 before I watch number 2 again. That's just how I personally feel. I like the characters better, and I feel like it's just a little bit more fun of a movie. It just kind of side crashes the plot a little bit. Now, hold on, because I'm still going to explain it later on when I rank another movie of why I think 4 surpasses number 2, and I will get there, I promise. Number 4 is Paranormal Activity Tokyo Night. By golly, this movie is hard to find, but it does exist. It is a Japanese spin-off. It came out immediately after number 1. Number 1 was very big in Japan, so they're like, oh, let's make our own movie. And this is what came out. And it's about a brother who has to watch over his sister who broke her legs in a car accident while his dad is away on a business trip. This movie has a very, very close atmosphere to Paranormal Activity 1. They did a really good job with it. Storyline, actually, it borrows quite a lot from Paranormal Activity 1. But as the movie goes, it knows that it is borrowing the recipe of success to number 1. So when you think certain shots are going to go a certain way, they'll kind of add in a twist here to keep you guessing. I liked it a lot. There's one point where, like, their friends came over and one of them was supposed to be a psychic, and they're like, yeah, just go check it out. And the girl, like, walks around the house for a bit and she, like, goes into a seizure. Like, it's immediate danger. This movie does a lot of cool things, and I don't want to get into too heavy spoiler territory, because if you liked the first Paranormal Activity movie and you kind of thought the sequels went off the deep end a bit, you should still check out this movie, because again, the atmosphere is very close. The sister who has broken legs, like, she gets haunted and she can't get up because her legs are broken, so there is just like feelings of despair as you like watch things happen, and she's freaking out, and her only chance of like survival or help is her brother who sleeps in another room. It's just awesome. It's an awesome idea, and it's an awesome little spin they put on the franchise. I liked it a lot. Again, it's very slow burn. It does have a connection to the very first Paranormal Activity movie, so it is not like the next of kin. They literally relate some of the plot back to the first movie, so that is a very cool thing they did. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers just in case, because I feel like just a lot of people haven't seen it, but I will throw this one tidbit out there. There's a point to where the sister who has broken legs, the ghost makes her get up, and she walks on her broken legs, and it is absolutely terrifying. It's an awesome movie. It deserves to be checked out. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do, because it is fun, and that's why it's at number 4. Number 3 is Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones. This movie, when it came out, because a lot of people were frustrated with Paranormal Activity 4, and when this came out, they said, oh, it's going to be a Latino spin-off, and it's not really canon, it's not going to be the fifth film, you'll have to wait for the fifth film. What a stupid marketing thing they did with that. This is definitely canon. It should not be labeled as a spin-off, because it is more canon than Ghost Dimension can even dream to be. Okay, so if you're not even a Paranormal Activity fan and you haven't watched the other movies, in a vacuum, this movie can exist and can still be very good. It has an awesome and hilarious cast. Jesse and Hector, completely awesome. They're funny. When they get a camera, they're doing jackass stunts. That's all very entertaining. There's very eerie scenes, especially when classmate Oscar's lurking around. There's a little witch that's in an apartment that's right by them. They get into shenanigans. It can get creepy, but also funny just based upon the interactions. And honestly, this movie boils down, it's kind of a origin story to a villain or an anti-hero. I don't know if you call him anti-hero or a villain, because ultimately he's evil by the end of the movie. But Jesse's descent into madness as this movie goes on, it's just entertaining and it's awesome. This movie does not do the night 1, night 2, night 3 thing, and you do not miss it when you are watching this movie. It's fast paced, it just keeps going, and it's entertaining one part after another. You know, you really like Jesse until he starts hurting his dog, or he starts picking fights with random people at the grocery store. This movie is just fun. I mean, by the end, you got people blowing witches away with shotguns. I mean, does it get any better than that? And the answer to that is yes, it does. And the reason why this movie is lifted up so high to number 3 is because not only is it a nice self-contained story that can be both creepy and funny and interesting, but this movie also ties into all the other movies in the franchise if you are a close fan and if you are paying attention. So it ties into the very first Paranormal Activity movie by Hector going into the wardrobe, going back in time, and then he is back in the house in Paranormal Activity 1, and they're at the very end of the Paranormal Activity 1 movie, and that's where the end of this movie, finalizes, which is completely awesome. I was like, wow, I was literally, you know how Marvel fans freak out in the theaters when Captain America comes out? And that's how I was watching this movie. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Katie coming down the stairs. I was so excited. It's an awesome ending for that, but it ties in the first one that way. It ties into number 2 by bringing Allie back, who is basically, this movie is the only movie in the later sequels that has the brains to bring Allie back, which she should have been a main character, but at least this movie did bring her back. She was brought back to kind of give the lore dump, to catch the characters up on everything that's happened in the previous films. It ties into number 3 by having little Katie and little Christy down in the basement. And it also, at the very end, when they go to confront the cult to get Jesse back, they go to the grandma's house in Paranormal Activity 3, which again, I was completely fangirling while in theater. I was so freaking excited. And it ties into number 4, and I just kind of caught this, and it's a theory online, and I'm buying into it 100%. The very end of this movie, there's a girl with blonde hair that picks up the camera, and it's supposed to be Alex from Paranormal Activity 4. That's her, picking up the camera. Completely awesome. So you get this movie who can tie into all 4 different films. And here's my argument with number 4 and number 2. Whenever I was I put number 4 and number 2. So this movie introduces time travel, which some people kind of roll their eyes when that first happens. But to me, I think this franchise dearly needed it, especially after number 4 with the butchering of the narrative. And when you introduce time travel, you can now in future movies go back and explain why Katie did not have Hunter at the beginning of the 4th movie. That can be easily fixed. You do that, and then it could be aha, see, we knew where we were going the entire time. Now, does that happen? No, because Ghost Dimension's awful. But this movie opened up the doorway to where that alley was possible. Compared to number 2, Paranormal Activity 2, Where the flaws in that film, where it just gets like really kind of slow in the movie, or the lot of cutaways, those things can't be solved by time travel. So when this movie happened and introduced that concept, I was like, the problems in number 4 can be fixed pretty easily here if they do it right, which they didn't. But since this movie exists, I'm able to forgive the sins of number 4 a lot easier than number 2, if that makes sense. So this is Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. It's my little loophole to where I can say, like, I think number 4 is better than number 2. So that's why Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, is at number 3 for me. Like, it is a juggernaut of a film for being so late in the franchise. I even considered moving it higher, but I was like, what am I doing? Am I crazy here? I can't do that. And I had a fight with myself, and it stayed at number 3, so that's where it stays. Number 2 is the original Paranormal Activity movie. This movie is iconic in its own sense. It redefined the entire horror genre. Thousands and thousands of found footage movies were released after this movie. I mean, the Blair Witch Project, I always say the Blair Witch Project crawled so Paranormal Activity could run. After this was made, there was tons and tons of copycats. I mean, this franchise went on quite a bit. I'm talking about 8 movies here. It's just iconic in its own sense. It's very simple. It's an indie film, and it's a very slow atmospheric movie that kind of preys upon your fears. When you're a little kid and you think you hear something in the other room, or you swear you saw the chandelier moving, or maybe the fan on your ceiling was rotating, and you're like, why is it doing that? I didn't turn it on. And it just gets that little idea in your head of what if? What if there is a ghost? What if there is a demon? All those little fears that you have, this movie just dwells in it. And it makes you feel it. And it's very almost nostalgic of the fears that you feel. As a kid, my biggest fear always was just getting my own house, moving away from my parents, and then hearing like weird, crazy thumps in the night of like some ghost haunting my house. That was just always a fear growing up, especially living in the Midwest, back in the day. I mean, the scenes with the Ouija board catching on fire, Katie getting dragged out of bed, even the ending with her standing in the doorway and like lunging at the camera. I feel like it's all just very iconic. Everyone knows about Paranormal Activity, and it has to be high up there. I mean, this movie means a lot to me. It freaked me out when it came out. I mean, I've loved the franchise as it went. So I do love this movie dearly. And even though as I rewatched the marked ones and I'm like, oh man, this movie could make a jump, it just couldn't jump this movie. It couldn't. So that's why it's at number 2. So that means number 1, the very best Paranormal Activity movie, is Paranormal Activity 3 for me. When I went to see Paranormal Activity 2 in theaters, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a great movie. But I remember making a remark to my friend of like, I don't think anything will ever top the first one though. I was like, I think I'll be the fan that will always just lurk back to the first one. If someone's a fan of the movie Halloween, a lot of times they're like, yeah, but nothing beats the original. And I felt like I was going to be that fan towards the Paranormal Activity franchise. And then number 3 came out. In my opinion, number 3 has the best characters. I think it has the best pacing overall for a film. When people criticize Paranormal Activity, usually they're like, oh, it's boring, and I was bored, and there's just pots and pans moving around. And then I'm like, have you seen number 3, though? Because number 3, there's quite a lot in it, and the pacing's just a lot quicker. It's not a typical Blumhouse movie where things are crawling on walls and heads are spinning 1,000 miles an hour. But the pacing, like, it is kind of quick. It's the quickest it gets without ditching the day 1, day 2 type things. So usually when I hear that criticism, I often think, they probably quit watching after the first or second one. Because again, I think the pacing's so good. The little girls who play Katie and Christy, they do a fantastic job of not only being entertaining on screen, but Christy is very creepy when she's talking to her friend Toby. The scares in this movie are great. Katie being locked in the little room, them playing Bloody Mary, Christy again being creepy about every night in this movie, the babysitter scare with the sheet, Katie running into an invisible force while she's chasing Christy, Katie being dragged into the little room. I mean, Katie gets it a lot in this film. The creepy grandma, which is heavily foreshadowed. I mean, there's literally a part at the end of the film where she's standing in the doorway, like as a silhouette. Like, oh, it's just very subtle and very creepy. This movie introduces the cult aspect. I mean, the lore. This movie does a fantastic job adding on to the lore as well. The rotating fan. The camera gimmick they have. It is the best camera gimmick that this franchise has to offer. It's literally just a gold mine of A, acting, B, being scary, C, adding to the lore. It literally just doesn't do anything wrong in this movie. Literally the only sin, if you are like trying to nitpick, is giving the demon the name Toby. That's probably the only mistake that it made. But still, like, it's kind of iconic, and I'm used to it already. You know, like, it doesn't frustrate me that his name's Toby. But overall, this is just, I think, the best film of the franchise. And I just, even the original can't pass it. And, you know, even when I was big on the marked ones, I'm like, yeah, there's no way it's touching 3, though. Like, 3 is in its very own place. So this is my ranking of the Paranormal Activity series. Thank you so much for listening. And if you followed along with the series of videos that I've made for this franchise, I mean, I love this franchise deeply, and I feel like it doesn't get covered enough. I mean, I know there's a lot of channels that do, but I was like, man, I just want to add to that. Like, I just love this franchise a lot, and I was excited to cover it so much. So if you've been here, you know, thank you so much. Comment me your rankings, because I am curious, you know, where I stand with other people's opinions. It's always fun to discuss it. You know, tell me in the comments what you think. What's the best one? What's the worst one? You know, was I wrong for putting 4 above number 2? I think most people will probably say so. But hopefully my reasoning, you know, kind of rings a little bit of a bell with some people. I don't know. Maybe you'll think I'm stupid for that. So comment, tell me what you think. Give this video a like, it gets it out to other people. And again, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Follow me on socials on Twitter/X. I am at Field of Scream. I had to make it singular because Field of Screams was already taken. Also, follow me on Instagram, Field of Screams Podcast. I'll be there. You know, feel free to tweet at me or comment on Instagram. You know, tell me what you think about these episodes online. I'd love to hear from you. Well, guys, again, thanks for tuning in, and until next time.